Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in and it appears that China and Russia are trying to get rid of the US dollar as the world currency. So on today's video, we're going to jump into, is it even possible? What exactly is going on in the world and why would they want to get rid of the US dollar? And I had to take a little bit of a break, y'all, from real estate. So instead just today, and happy Sunday, by the way, we're going to talk about the world and what's going on exactly with the US dollar. And remember this, I'm not a financial advisor, even though my bio is as a renter who's frustrated with renting and I'm sick and tired of waiting for the housing market. I just want to give up sometimes and just buy. But my logic and my experience and my past have all telling me, hold up, pump the brakes, don't buy right now. But that's not what today's video is about. So if you guys can, for me, just switching up my content just a little bit, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and shoot me a comment below and let me know if you want me to talk about things other than just the real estate market. But either way, let's start this video by talking about what's going on exactly on the world stage as it pertains to the dollar. After that, we're going to go into what is BRICS, because you guys probably are hearing a lot of things about BRICS. So we're going to talk about what that is as well. And overall, the dominance of the dollar, the sanctions, and really why are people wanting to get rid of the dollar. And where we're going to start is kitco.com. Take a look at this article. And I'll quickly paint the picture here and then we can move on. But this is a great article just to break down exactly kind of what's going on right now. Name of the article is Ex-Goldman. What? Ex-Goldman chief economist calls on BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, to challenge the US dollar's dominance as China leads de-dollarization trend. This is very important to pay attention to. I've highlighted a couple things here. First, former Goldman Sachs chief economist Jim O'Neill is calling on the BRICS bloc to expand and challenge the dominance of the US dollar. China's recent actions with the yen are already doing just that. The US dollar plays a far too dominant, okay, so again, the US dollar plays a far too dominant role in global finance. He wrote in a paper published in the Global Policy Journal, whenever the Federal Reserve Board has embarked on periods of monetary tightening or the opposite, loosening, the consequences of the value of the dollar and the knock-on effects have been dramatic. O'Neill sees the dollar's dominance as a burden to nations with dollar-dominated debt since their monetary policies are destabilized when exchange rate fluctuation. Later on in this video, we'll go into who's currently part of BRICS and who they want to recruit. But here's a small list of nations that want to potentially become members of BRICS, which is Mexico, Turkey, Egypt, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Pakistan, and the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. Okay, so it's kind of a big deal, right? Kind of a big deal. BRICS needs to work on expanding its influence with the World Bank and Institutional Monetary Fund. According to the Institute for Securities Studies, BRICS represent 42% of the global population, so almost half of the population is a member of BRICS, but its members hold less than 15% of the voting power at both institutions. So we have a huge amount of population, but yet they only get 15% of the voting power. So I don't think it's fair in their minds. Also, what's interesting is central banks bought a record amount of gold in 2022. So they're making moves. They want to put essentially collateral behind a new currency. I believe they're trying to make a new currency for trading to get away from the dollar. Let's keep reading. China also struck a deal with Brazil to trade in their own country's currency. AFP reported this week, citing the Brazilian government. China has been Brazil's largest trading partner since 2009, and there lies the influence with China. They are such big trading partners with so many nations. You know, they have a lot of influence to deter people off of the dollar onto another form of currency, specifically their own. Saudi Arabia appears to be turning towards Beijing and away from the West. This has fueled talk of Saudi accepting a different currency from its sale of oil to China. So very, very interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on. Even Elon Musk here, tweeted about this a few days ago. Serious issue. U.S. policy has been too heavy-handed, making countries want to ditch the dollar. But it's not just the dominance of the dollar monetary policy. It's also the sanctions. A lot of the people that are members of BRICS have had sanctions against them from the US. And we'll read about that more in a minute here, but essentially the world is acting as if the US is a bully, right? And they're bullying other nations with the dollar. Now, I'll argue that's probably a result of the horrible, tragic war that's going on right now. A lot of people forget that. And let me tell you this, someone is making a tremendous amount of money on that war: ammunition. Someone's making a tremendous amount of money with weaponry. And it's really, really sad, y'all, because that, in order for that that mega amount of profit, people have to die. It's not fair. Same thing with, cancer treatment. And I won't go there. I have genetic disorders, so I feel like I could touch on that a little bit. But now what I want to do is let me break down BRICS for you, and let's go into exactly who they are. And as always, I will have these articles referenced in my description. The name of this article is Brazil, China Ditch US Dollar for Trade Payments, Favor Yen. The US no longer looks as socially or economically stable as it did just a decade ago. How have we lost so much respect? I'm joking, I know how. Now an increasing number of nations are eager to find an alternative financial system to insulate themselves from Washington's willingness to use sanctions as a political leverage. Think about that, you guys. The world is starting to get fed up. I mean, we probably need a lot better relations with the world. So let me tell you guys who the current BRICS members are. But first, let me break down the acronym. So BRICS stands for this, okay? And it shows right here. BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay, so BRICS, the trade of currency exchange bloc, is designed to bypass UN regulations and international sanctions. Here's the other members that want to join BRICS. Now, again, Russia, China, India, Brazil, and South Africa are already members, but they're also trying to get all of the ones in pink: Argentina, Nigeria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Nations, Afghanistan, and Kazakhstan. So they're making a really, really big push to over half of the world stop using the dollar as a global currency. That is huge. So there's pretty massive things going on right now behind the scenes. Let's read a little bit more. The effectiveness of the sanctions was a wake-up call to nations with authoritarian tendencies worldwide. Russia, China, right? But it came as no surprise to those who have suffered in the past from having weak economies, totally dependent on the overbearing US dollar. So that's what I'm saying. The world is getting sick and tired of the sanctions from the US. Again, I'm not making any excuses for the war. I think that's a complete tragedy. I'm just telling you what I see is happening. American calls for defense of the international rule of law fall on jaded ears among many nations occupying the space between Western democracies and the authoritarian states of Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and a few others. While there may be some readjusting of portfolios in the short run, a Russia and China-led economic bloc is hardly going to inspire confidence in fund managers and bankers worldwide and induce them to shun US dollar-dominated securities. So in other words, as of right now, people are kind of rolling their eyes at the dollar being replaced again because the dollar is just so strong. People really don't want to invest somewhere where they have a weak, unstable currency. I mean, would you, right? I'm proud to have the dollar, although the dollar right now is getting severely weakened as a result of the inflation and money printing. So as that continues, the dollar will more than likely become even more devalued. So in my opinion, we need to do two things: be really, really careful about the dollar losing value, but we also need to improve our relations around the world because these guys want us to kick rocks. So let's end the video now. Let me give you guys a brief history lesson on the US dollar. And I'm going to do that with this article titled De-Dollarization, Countries Seeking Alternatives to the US dollar. I really like this. Again, this is going to be linked. This is a nice breakdown of the past 100 years of the dollar. So let me kind of take y'all through this. Okay, so timeline of the dollar dominance. So starting in the 1920s, the dollar begins to displace the pound sterling as an international reserve currency after the First World War. The United States is a significant recipient of wartime gold inflow. So fast forward to 1944. International trade is conducted using the US dollar under the Bretton Woods Agreement. So again, even more dollar dominance, but look at what happens around the 1960s. So 1960s, European and Japanese exports become more competitive with US exports. There is a large supply of dollars around the world, making it difficult to back dollars with gold. So in the 1960s, the dollar was backed by gold. And again, I will remind you, we have a record amount of lenders, foreign lenders specifically, foreign banks buying gold. Do you think there's a reason, right? There's probably a reason. Stability in their currency. At least that's what it looks like. And then fast forward to 1971, President Nixon ceases the direct convertibility of US dollars to gold. So 1971, they took us off basically the gold standard backing the US dollar. Fast forward to 1981, and this is what I'm worried about right now. After years of hyperinflation, sound familiar, y'all? After years of hyperinflation, the US dollar loses 2/3 of its purchasing power. Brutal, y'all. So again, it stands to reason that a similar, I don't think 2/3 of the purchasing power because the entire world is in trouble, but I definitely think we're losing purchasing power, but not at that extent. 2007 to 2008, global financial crisis. Investors seek US dollars expecting the currency to retain its value. And it certainly did. So the start of the de-dollarization really happened around 2014. Following the annexation of Crimea, Russia prioritizes de-dollarization in response to Western sanctions. So we could have sanctions because we're really in control of the dollar, right? So 2022, central banks buy gold. This is important. Central banks, 2022, central banks buy gold at the fastest pace since 1967 as countries diversify their reserves away from the dollar. Everyone's buying gold. I bought some gold. I'm storing it somewhere else. A lot of people are buying gold right now. The war in Ukraine results in Western sanctions against Russia. As a result, Russia and China deepen cooperation between their financial system, with ruble-yen trade increasing 80 times in 8 months. So they're trying really, really hard to get away from the dollar. I mean, that's clear. Fast forward to 2023, Brazil and Argentina discussed the creation of a common currency. So they're trying to create a new currency. The UAE and India explore the use of rupees to trade non-oil commodities. Pretty sure that's not going to work out too well, but let's continue. Russia and Iran are working together to launch cryptocurrency backed by gold. Despite these movements, few expect to see the end of the dollar's global sovereign status anytime soon. Currently, central banks still hold about 60% of their foreign exchange reserves in dollars. And if we go down to this chart, we can really see how dominant the dollar is at 60% of reserves in the dollar, about 20% from Europe, and then that's followed by Japan. So China's is actually way down here at looks like right here at 2.8%. So they have a long, long way to go. It is important to understand what's happening right now. And if we keep having systematic failure and money printing here in the US, it's probably just going to help them move away from the dollar on a global stage. Again, hard to imagine right now, but there's a lot of things going on in the background that none of us understand. And that's a fact. Russia and China steps towards de-dollarization. Concern about America's dominance over global financial systems and the country's ability to weaponize it, other nations have been testing alternatives to reduce the dollar's power. As the United States and other Western nations imposed economic sanctions against Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow and the Chinese government have been teaming up to reduce reliance on the dollar and to establish cooperation between their financial systems. Since the invasion in 2022, the ruble-yen trade has increased 80-fold. Russia and Iran are also working together to launch a cryptocurrency backed by gold, according to Russian news. In addition, central banks have bought gold at the fastest pace since 1967 as countries move to diversify their reserves away from the dollar. So in conclusion, the dollar's dominance is taking a massive hit on the world stage, and the money printing and inflation is not helping the situation. So when all is said and done, it's a little bit scary to know what to do. And a lot of people are afraid, and asking, what do you do with the money? What do I do with my money? Okay. And I'm just going to tell you what I did, and I'm not telling you to copy me. I got out of the stock market for the time being. I want to get back in, but I've completely got out of the stock market. I've debanked a lot of my money, and I've purchased gold and had that stored somewhere else. You can actually have gold stored at a facility. And I'm also buying treasury bills. And the reason I'm doing that, y'all, is I would rather invest with a slower return on my money and feel safe about it than be a victim to any potential bank runs or any more systematic failures and things of that nature. But one thing is for sure, we should definitely keep paying attention to what's going on the global stage as it pertains to the dominance of the dollar. Now, other than that, guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it gave you guys new insight, value, and perspective. And if you're out there investing in currency or real estate, I wish you luck and I hope you win.